Hey y'all, Frankie here. So to be perfectly honest, I have no rightful idea how to start this video. Like many of you, I've been a huge fan of the Call of Duty series for over a decade, dating from Call of Duty 2, the big red one, to this year's installment, Black Ops Cold War, and I enjoyed many things this series of games has accomplished over the years. I've had so many memories from the Call of Duty series, and I fully believe in the power and value that video games can bring to the table, which is what inspired me to make this series of videos. I'd also be remiss if I didn't mention my admiration for the work of the many content creators who I've watched. Shout out to RadAustin27, Noah J456, and the many others who have been crushing it over the years. I will continue to look to you all for guidance as I try to learn the skills to effectively create content on this channel, and hope to do so in a positive and measured way. With that context in mind, please go easy on me in these first few attempts, and I assure you the production quality will improve over time. For this video, I'll have some outbreak footage rolling in the background from me trying to max rank the M82 and the Magnums, so again, please be kind. But for now, let's pivot to the topic at hand. So undoubtedly, the rumors have been swirling over the past few weeks that the next title, Call of Duty Vanguard, developed by Sledgehammer Games, is the next game on the horizon for the Call of Duty franchise, which will be its 18th main installment in the series. Ahead of the game being released, there are a couple of trends I've noticed throughout the life cycle of the current title, Black Ops Cold War, that I think both Sledgehammer Games and Activision should focus upon to ensure the success of Call of Duty Vanguard. Obviously, this year, with competition in the FPS space being fierce between Halo Infinite, Battlefield 2042, and many other big titles coming out this year to compete with Vanguard and Activision's juggernaut, Warzone, I think the following topics will be key to ensure the success of the game. Here is part 1, addressing the absence of history in Black Ops Cold War. One of my favorite elements of the franchise historically has been their ability to intertwine historical events and themes from real life into compelling in-game experiences. Immediately, what comes to mind for me is Black Ops 1, which was released in 2011. For that game, the centrality of the Project MK Ultra experiments within the campaign, which was fleshed out in The Numbers Mason, What Do They Mean?, is a great example of this. I greatly appreciated how historical events such as these experiments done by the CIA and the presence of real-life characters such as JFK, Castro, Defense Secretary Robert McNamara, etc. were used as a driving storytelling element in that game. Their presence helped validate the importance of the mission that Woods, Hudson, and Mason were embarking upon by giving it a grounded sense of footing in time and place. Additionally, the locations within campaign and multiplayer were equally well developed. Examples include maps such as Hanoi, Havana, Jungle, Nuketown, WMD, and Launch. All of these maps borrowed themes and elements from traditional Cold War historical perspectives. I'll never forget the first time loading up the BO1 MP map, Launch, and the dynamic impact on the multiplayer experience of the rocket taking off that made that part of the map temporarily inaccessible to players, or risking being stuck in the rocket's flames. That sort of unique gameplay experience I feel is sorely lacking in this year's multiplayer. Further, the themes of the Red Scare and WMDs that were central to other multiplayer experiences in BO1 really gave an added sense of context and tone that made Black Ops 1 for me one of my favorite multiplayer experiences ever. Not only that, but even during the life of Black Ops 1, DLC packs were introduced that strengthened their historical content. An example, which I'll have linked in the description below, comes from a DLC promo for the First Strike pack, which, if I'm not mistaken, included Ascension as the DLC 1 Zombies map, which is one of my all-time favorites from the series. In this promo, however, Treyarch included the song by the Scorpions Wind of Change, which the lyrics of the song ring loud and clear as a proponent of Western ideologies of anti-communism. A fantastic podcast series exists on Spotify covering the alleged CIA involvement in writing these lyrics, as the US was attempting to use all methods available to help reduce the spread of communist ideologies that were prevalent in the USSR during that era. However, the use by Treyarch of this song was clearly intentional within that promo, as it sought to capture the pop culture impact that song in the 1980s had on international relations, and added some context to the overall impact that pop culture can have on the Cold War. This type of storytelling being in Treyarch's history, no pun intended, is what made me so initially excited to see Black Ops Cold War release, which was advertised as a spiritual successor to BO1, as it's set several years after the events of Black Ops 1. In advance of the game coming out, I even went so far as to watch a 24-part CNN documentary series. Yes, I'm a nerd, I know. Links will be below in the description of this series if anybody's interested, which covered the key events of the Cold War. Given how highly I regard the Black Ops 1 campaign, I felt obligated to watch this series to refresh my memory on the central conflicts of the Cold War and to see which topics not yet addressed in BO1 Black Ops Cold War could explore. But after playing the campaign on release day, and multiplayer throughout its life cycle, I've realized that even though this year's installment says in the bottom right corner of the game, every time you load up, "Welcome to Black Ops Cold War, are you ready to make history?" It's my contention that this new title did not introduce any significant new themes or historical events on the level of Black Ops 1. Let's dive into that, shall we? So I am going to get into some spoiler warning material here, so feel free to click off if you don't want to have the campaign potentially ruined for you. But with the exception of Ronald Reagan making a brief appearance in the campaign, Raven Software and Treyarch focused their storytelling in this game on Perseus, a fictitious Russian spy who had alleged to infiltrate the Manhattan Project during the US development of the nuclear bomb. And the campaign follows a newly introduced character, Russell Adler, and his hunt for Perseus. Meanwhile, the character that you, the player, play as, named Bell, has a separate character arc from Adler, as his narrative is focused on, once again, a lead character in a Black Ops game being exposed to MK Ultra type experiments like those that Mason faced in Black Ops 1. These narrative choices by the campaign directors felt like they landed rather hollow from a player experience perspective, as the ultimate revelations that Perseus was more myth than a man, and the lack of originality with the experiments Bell experienced, since they were basically what they did to Mason in BO1, it felt like there were many topics left on the table that the story could have covered. Maybe this is due to developmental time available, perhaps there was a constraint on the runtime of the campaign itself, as, for anyone that played the campaign knows, this campaign felt relatively shorter than other previous entries in the series. I'm sure there's several explanations that could be the root cause, but to me, this was an aspect of the game development that I think needs to be revisited in the next title, to avoid the appearance of overpromising a historical game while not really delivering on that promise. I admit, expectations being too high or too low can determine how someone reacts to certain content, and it's on me to manage my own expectations. However, after several months of teasing Cold War through Warzone via complex ciphers and live streams with big content creators trying to break into all these locked bunkers, it would seem to me to be reasonable to assume that the level of effort that they were giving to building a deep world within the game would be matched by the level of effort they went into putting together the marketing. But you know what they say about assuming. All that said, current rumors speculate that COD Vanguard could focus on the Pacific theater of World War II, which is relatively uncovered as a component of the war by previous Call of Duty iterations, with the exception of World at War did dabble a little bit in the Pacific theater. So, generally, I think a relatively new historical space to play with, and a team with veteran experience on how to produce a World War II game, given Sledgehammer produced 2017's World War II title, I'm cautiously optimistic that Sledgehammer will introduce settings, combat, and stories from that theater that will enhance the gameplay and narrative experience, unlike the promises that were made within Black Ops Cold War. HBO actually made a sister series to their critically acclaimed Band of Brothers, which is called The Pacific, which is also fantastic. And if Vanguard shares any similarity to the Pacific and some of the themes that are covered in that series, we are in for an exciting year of content. And why shouldn't we be? With more avenues for Call of Duty to issue content to its players now than ever, with campaign, zombies, multiplayer, and Warzone expected to be fully ready at launch, there are so many exciting things to look forward to, even if World War II isn't everyone's favorite setting for a Call of Duty game. Advanced Warfare 2 would have been cool as well, I admit, given Sledge is developing this year's game. That all said, this concludes part 1. The next chapter will cover player empowerment and everyone's favorite topic, SPMM. See you all in the next one. Bye now. Oh, and because I'm a complete amateur at this, I forgot to say, if you enjoyed the video, feel free to leave a like and subscribe for more. Looking forward to making more content like this, and if there are any video ideas that you want to come and see from me based on my general style and history of the series, feel free to let me know in the comments section. Thanks again.